It's time to put together a basic cheese board. But where do I start? What cheese do I use? How do I go about putting it together? Today I'm going to share my top 5 tips with you for putting together a basic cheese board. Hi, I'm Taryn. If we haven't met before, I love food, plating and presentation and would love to share my tips with you so you can take your food presentation to the next level. Today we're going to discuss basic cheese boards and different things to keep in mind when putting one together. Well, this cheese board isn't going to put itself together, so let's get started. What are we making the cheese board on? You could use lots of different things. Something like a white or plain coloured platter so that the cheese and garnishes stand out. Or a large wooden board like this would work well too. But today I'm going to use this big blackboard board to create a spacious cheese board. I've chosen this so that I can write the names of the different cheeses on using chalk. Let's talk about the main components you'd find on a cheese board. The cheese, the accompaniments and the garnishes. Tip number 1, my first basic cheese board tip is to use a variety of different cheeses. Cheese comes in so many different shapes, colours, sizes and flavours, so choose some that you love and enjoy. If you were to put 3 wedges on a cheese board, that's cool, but it isn't adding much visual appeal. If you were to put 3 soft cheeses on the plate, it isn't adding much textural appeal. And if you were to put 3 different blue cheeses on the plate, it isn't adding much flavoural appeal. Is that even a word? Well, I hope you get the idea and can see how a variety of different cheese will enhance your cheese board. I've got a round camembert. This is a soft cheese with a white bloomy rind. Brie, goat's cheese or a fruit cheese would also be great. This is a wedge of aged Airedale. This has a very robust full flavour and a semi-hard texture. It's also got a red waxed rind. Cheddar, Havarti or Gouda could also be used in this category. And my final cheese is a semicircle of blue Castello. This has a delicate sharpness and a creamy texture. Blue cheese isn't everyone's cup of tea, so you could use a smoked cheese or a fruity cheese instead. Tip number 2, having an odd number of cheese varieties. Having an odd number of things has been proven to create an interesting visual experience. So having an odd number of cheeses on your platter will enhance your presentation. I'm going to spread out the 3 different cheeses along the board, leaving room to add other accompaniments and garnishes. I'll put the red waxed cheese in the centre to break up the other lighter coloured cheeses. Putting a wedge of cheese upright would add height to the platter, but it isn't going to be very practical to cut, is it? So I'll lie it flat here. Tip number 3, cheese orientation. The part of the cheese that the guests cut into needs to be facing out. This is really important for the functionality of your cheese board because the rind stays behind. So keep the rind either in the centre or towards the back of your cheese board. So we've got the cheese sorted. What do we put with it? You need something to put the cheese onto, so having some crackers is a must. And here comes tip number 4. Remember, the star of the cheese board is the cheese. So make sure you don't have a greater variety of crackers than you do of cheese. You can get so many different kinds of crackers, so choose a variety of shapes, colours and complementary flavours to your cheese. A strong garlic flavoured cracker wouldn't work especially well with a sweet fruity cheese, would it? Here's some plain round wafer crackers. These have a beautiful texture and no flavour, so the flavour of the cheese will really stand out. I've also got some savoury onion and balsamic square crackers that will add a depth of flavour with any of these cheese varieties. And lastly, I have some buttery cheese straws. I chose these mainly for the presentation side of things, but they are a nice crunchy little palate cleanser after a strong cheese too. I'll pile these up in a couple of spots, deliberately overlapping them to create a bit of height. And finally, what else do we put on the platter as a garnish and to fill in the gaps? Fresh or dried fruit, fruit pastes and nuts are all a lovely addition. And of course, some fresh herbs will add to the presentation. Here's some red grapes, dried apple rings, toasted almonds, fresh rosemary for garnishing, and some pear and ginger paste. I'll put it towards the front, between the cheese. When adding grapes to the platter, make sure to arrange the bunches with the grapes pointing upward and the stalks hidden as much as possible. A really stalky looking bunch doesn't look as beautiful. And you can cut the bunch into smaller little bunches and pile them up so guests can take a little bunch rather than disrupting the entire bunch of grapes. I'll put a few smaller piles around the board so they're easily accessible from any side. You can pile up the apple rings in a few different spots. Dried apricots or dried pears are also good options. I'll pop the almonds in the gaps here and there. Toasted almonds, cashews or even pistachios are perfect alternatives if you prefer. And for the finishing touches, my board is a blackboard, so I can write the names of the cheeses using chalk. You could also stick little name tags into the cheeses if you want to. And of course, a few sprigs of rosemary or any fresh herb works well. Rosemary is a herb that is really easy to grow and is such a great garnish to have on hand. Look at how the splash of green finishes off the overall look of this cheese board. Doesn't this look amazing? And this brings us to tip number 5. My final tip for creating a basic cheese board is to put it together at least 30 minutes before you want to serve it. This allows the cheese to come to room temperature and enhances the flavours. And since the cheese is the star of the show, we want to serve it at its best. We've talked about lots of different presentation aspects to keep in mind when creating a basic cheese board. A variety in colour, texture, shape and flavour, so you can treat your guests to an amazing visual and appetising experience. Happy cheese board creating! If you found this video helpful, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Here's another video you might like and a playlist ready to go down here. See you next time!